Today, I am joined by one of my favorite humans and most entertainingly unfiltered coaches on the internet, Jaime, who specializes in coaching anxious lesbians with their health and, of course, their anxiety. So in this episode, we talk about the link between anxiety and control, why so many high-achieving women can't function without chaos, and how you can channel all of that into an actual superpower. We're also going to get into routines, decision fatigue, emotional regulation, and why most of us out here are trying to feel safe while spinning in fight or flight like a fucking fidget spinner in 2017, okay? This episode is packed with insights, unexpected humor, and just enough chaos to feel right at home, so buckle up, my girl.
My biggest question, Jaime, is how did you come up with anxious lesbians? Because when I heard that you figured out the name of your niche, I was like, I'm so jealous. I wish I was a lesbian so I could be an anxious lesbian. I want to be a part of the group.
If they try hard enough. How did they come up with it? So when I started as an online coach, I was one of those people who just catered to everybody, men, women, children, fat loss, muscle gain, all of it. You wanted it, regardless of who you were, I was about it. And it was okay for a while, but then I didn't really have a specialty. And all of these business coaches were like, you need a specialty, you need a niche. And I said, okay, so then how about just women, fat loss, muscle gain? Okay, great, perfect. And we ruled with that for a little bit. And each one of these iterations where we chopped off one of the adjectives or added an adjective took about a year to really figure out. So it was women who wanted to lose fat and gain muscle. And then, the more I would post about Katie and our life, it became LGBTQ women who wanted to lose fat and build muscle. And that was probably year 3 of our business. The issue became that the majority of the LGBTQ community, known fact, struggles with their mental health. So while we were bringing people in droves because we had such a solid, we got a ton of results, but we also had solid marketing, people were also dropping off. Our churn rate was insane because we weren't addressing the mindset component. So when someone would come to us and be like, listen, love your program, but my anxiety doesn't allow me the bandwidth to track my macros, or I'm hitting, the black cloud is over my head, I'm struggling with depression, I'm not getting up to move. We're like, fuck, so as quickly as we were bringing them in, we were losing them because we weren't addressing the anxiety. So then in its final iteration, it became anxious lesbians with 15 to 20 pounds to lose, and then to loop it back around, but can't lose it because anxiety is getting in the way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that it was so prevalent in that community, but it makes sense, because you're kind of fighting against a lot of things as you're figuring yourself out. Do you think that's where it stems from for most? Is figuring out what their identity is in the early years of their adulthood?
I think, I would make it even more broad. I think any marginalized community starts with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. Clearly I cannot speak from experience, but I imagine the African American community struggles with their mental health. As a Jew, especially now, we are all struggling with our mental health. Immigrants struggling with their right? Any community that isn't, I don't even whatever the norm is, right? Is struggles with their mental health. So I don't want to say we get the spotlight because we're the black sheep of the world, just like every other minority. I do think that's one of the reasons it struggles. But yeah, it definitely goes back to childhood.
What do you do specifically to attack the anxiety? Do you have any tools, journal entries? What has been most helpful?
Yeah, I honestly, and this again is why we are a fitness coaching container and not a life coaching container, is because it's the fitness that helps alleviate. I'm not going to use cure, heal, whatever. Getting outside, starting our clients off with 5,000 steps, sometimes even 2,000 steps, sometimes even just leaving their house is what we do to begin to alleviate the anxiety. So we'll start with movement, simple, easy, meeting them where they're at movement. If it's YouTube videos at home because they're scared of judgment at the gym, if it's banded workouts, again, if it's just steps outside of their home, that's where we will meet them. And then when it comes to nutrition, slowly removing processed foods and sugar because that impacts your mental health quite a bit. So yeah, we could go into all of the other mindset resources and mindfulness practices that we use, journal entries included, cold plunge, sauna, but it really begins with movement and nutrition.
Isn't it so funny that it's so simple? And yet we're always looking for the easy way, the pill,
Right.
the shot, but it really is simple and it's
Right.
free. And yet we tend to overcomplicate it. Isn't that odd?
It is, because I don't think we want to believe that it can be that easy, right? Like, how many times even have you gotten into an argument with either Jake or a friend, and then all you did was like say how you really felt, and they're like, that's all you had to do. Or even just an apology that isn't followed by a but, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's a big one. And then as soon as I did that, Katie's like, that's all I needed, right? Or she's having a day and I give her a hug, and instead of like the fire, right? Oh, all you needed was, I overcomplicated it. I was like, fuck, like going back 6 months, what did I do that may have planted a seed in her anger with me today? No, she was -1 in the hug department, and then now we're at baseline. Yeah.
That's funny. That's so funny that you go back like an entire timeline. Jake and I don't really get in fights. We get in fights over the Kardashians for some reason, and those fights don't really end well. Apparently, we both have very strong opinions about the Kardashians.
Totally. Yeah. Well,
Two fights.
I don't know a lot about them, but I do know that they are quite polarizing, or, whatever you think, or which sister is your favorite. Yeah. I can see how that would get in the way of a really healthy marriage.
Yeah. I'm like, you don't understand. They do work really hard. And he's like, babe, they were basically born famous. I'm like, we're just never going to agree not to agree.
Okay, but also not for anything. You can be born famous and continue
And
to
ruin
work
it.
hard. Totally. This is, two things, right?
And you can be born a Kardashian and be a Rob. Like, he had a sock company. Like,
oh my God, this guy. I can't. Right. I'm going to get a shirt that says, don't be a Rob. Okay, like, take the silver. I'm going to choke you with that silver spoon, sir.
I was also curious to hear your take on the fact that, like, we all have anxiety, right? Isn't anxiety a feeling that we all are capable of experiencing, but some of us have it more?
Yeah, I would say I don't want to believe that we all live with a low level of anxiety, because if that was the case, like, I don't want to say what would be the point in joining our coaching program, but to an extent, we wouldn't be as effective as we are, right? I think it is normal to go through periods or days where you are overwhelmed and stressed. I don't think it's normal to live with a low level of anxiety. Just because that is your normal doesn't mean that it is normal. Right?
Yeah.
So what is my take? I mean, I think, so my definition of anxiety, and this is what I've figured out for myself, is life is lived in the present. We know this. There is the past. So anxiety can be when you replay conversations, or you go back through days, weeks, months, years. What should I have said? What could I have done differently? But you're like living in the difference between the past and the present. Or it can take place in the future. You're now worrying about all of the things that you can't control, can't do anything about. Anxiety is like a mathematical equation, in that it is the difference between what has already happened, which is now a fact, and things you either can control. And we talked about this. If you can control them, there's no point in worrying about them, because you can take action. But if you can't control them, there's also no point in worrying about them, because you can't control them. So as soon as you realize that mathematical equation almost absolves you of all worry, again, easier said than done, like fat loss, it just makes life so much more manageable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. And like you said, it's a lot easier said than done, because, I mean, I know that we were texting about this throughout the weekend, and you're like, well, what's your timeline? Like, how long do you have to be anxious about something until it's done?
Right. Yeah, that's right. But then at that point, you're like, okay, so that makes me think, and this is true maybe for you, but definitely for a lot of our clients, and even for myself, except it's not anxiety, it's chaos, right? If I'm not in boiling water, I don't know what to do with myself. And obviously something I'm working on in therapy, because I grew up in chaos is comfortable. So if you grew up feeling pressure, stress, overwhelm, anxiety, maybe from your parents or wherever you grew up, now the only time you can perform or exist or breathe is if you are under some sort of pressure, or if you feel some type of stress. That's how you get stuff done.
That's so true. And that's so relatable for, I think, a lot of us, especially like the older sibling. Like, I grew up the oldest sibling, and I was always parenting my other siblings. Right. And so just like you said, when you're used to having a lot of responsibility, a lot of things going on that you have to take care of, and then finally you have silence, like it's all taken care of. You're like, what the fuck do I do? Like, my normal is chaos, like you said.
Right. Or, I mean, it sounds like also in your case, the capital, like almost manager. If you're not managing people, if you're not managing systems, then what hat do you wear, right? Like my mom still parents me, right? Hey, I saw in your story you competed in CrossFit. Did you get it? Did you get your back checked out? How's your back? Right? Always about my previous injuries, right? Are you eating in between events? But that's because she is capital M mom. So for you, whatever that version is of your siblings, right? Taking care of them. Now you manage a team and you have so many systems. But what if one day you sell your business? I have a feeling you are going to find another team, systems, whatever, to manage.
Yeah. So I wonder, how do we break free of that need? You know, because I think we all have that need. It's just in a different way based on our upbringing. And is that a way, is that the vehicle towards kind of alleviating your anxiety, or at least mitigating it, is determining like how do we fill that void without chaos?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons and one of the things I love specifically about CrossFit. I started, I think we talked about this too, in my off season, I transitioned. I was doing bodybuilding off season for like 2 months. And then it drove me crazy. And I said, I get when, do you ever have those clients who are like, hey, it's been a week. Can I get a new set of workouts?
Yeah.
Like, no, you need 8 weeks of the same stimulus in order to adapt and change. Not me. No, I am that client, which is why I go to CrossFit. Because I never know what the fuck I'm going to get. If it's going to be a strength day, a Metcon day, a mobility. Like now, I don't have to screw with my business. I don't have to screw with my relationship. Because I fulfill my need for chaos by not knowing what I'm going to get at the gym. So again, if you need people to manage, instead of micromanaging Jake, instead of now micromanaging your siblings because they're like grown ass adults, you have a team and you've channeled it towards something productive. So once you figure out, I mean, obviously the first key is figuring out what the void is. Is it your need to feel significant? Is your need to feel chaos? Is it your need to manage? Say, okay, where in my life can like this be the most productive version of that quote unquote bad trait?
That's really powerful. And I think that if we viewed more of our characteristics in that way, like how can I channel this in a positive direction, then I think we would unlock a lot more of our passions, you know, like for example, being an all or nothing mentality. There's a positive way that you can channel that. You know, we just always see it being channeled negatively. And I think if we look at all of our characteristics and traits like that, like this is a superpower. I can either be a superhero or I can be a villain. You know, how do I channel it?
Yep.
That's interesting.
So again, same thing with anxiety. Where's the anxiety coming from? Need for control. Cool. What in your life can you control?
How have you noticed hormonal health impacting anxiety, if at all?
I think as we get older, I think there's like, I forget what it's called. There's this period, it's going to kill me and it's going to come to me in the middle of this conversation. I forget what it's called. It's a phenomenon. Maybe it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay. When you're like 15 to 25, you think you know everything and you're at the top of the arch. And then there's this period from like 25 to 55 where you're at the bottom and you realize you know nothing. And then after 55 again, you realize how wise you are and you do know everything. Now, I don't think that I'm nailing the exact ages, but I think part of that is hormones, but another part is just age. So when you're in that valley of I know nothing and what is my life, I haven't done anything, obviously that affects anxiety quite a bit. That's it. That's mostly it. I think hormones that affect mental health, obviously, I mean, we could talk cortisol, but I feel like that's been overplayed. But it has more to do with age, I would say, than hormones.
Interesting. Yeah, but that does make a lot of sense because your hormones impact a lot of, yes, your estrogen will impact your serotonin and things along those lines. But for the most part, it's impacting you physiologically. And anxiety is something that is impacting your mental state and your emotional state, right?
Right. But I mean, obviously, you can also chicken and egg, right? You increase your own cortisol when you put yourself in fight or flight.
Right.
You did that to yourself. So it's definitely all tied in. And then it's not, I don't want to start giving supplement recommendations to bring it down. We all go like the natural route. Like, of course, to each client, we'll talk about natural supplements, but obviously we would rather bring down and up rather bring down what needs to be brought down naturally and then bring up what needs to be brought up naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And going back to what we talked about originally, where it's so much easier than we give it credit for, I see that you post a lot of your routines and you're very habitual. I wonder, how did you determine that that was helpful for your anxiety?
It's so interesting because you're right. I do have a ton of routines and systems, but also, right, there's the chaos component.
But then you're like, I need to go to a workout class and not know what the fuck I'm doing any day.
I think for me, the routines help that need to control, right? While I may not know what fires I'm going to put out between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., I am very much in control of what happens between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. So I call it, whenever someone asks me or I do a call to action, like DM me for my morning routine, I always precede it with the adjective bulletproof. Because I honestly believe that between 6 and 8 a.m., that's me putting my armor on. So that regardless of what happens in my life, whether it's a friend, my relationship, or work, I have prepared myself by doing something I could control. So now I feel good. I heard this about cold plunging and I found it so interesting. It said, if you give yourself that huge rush of dopamine, but also fight or flight, first thing in the morning, your body doesn't seek it later in the day. You cannot just be chill all day. You cannot just go through life without any affect. So if you purposely raise it, if you purposely get your brain, holy shit, it won't try to mess with you later and make mountains out of molehills.
That is really interesting. And it does make a lot of sense, because if you go through a day without any conflict, that's actually really boring. I know that we want no problems, we want no stress, but the whole purpose of life is to problem solve your way through it,
100%. I remember, I think Tony Robbins or whoever came up with the six basic needs, 6 basic human needs. We need routine and habit, but we also need spontaneity. We cannot just live Groundhog Day. And that's when we start to cause problems for ourselves, right? Regardless of what kind of human, even if you didn't need chaos like I do, human beings need surprise, an element of surprise in their day. So again, if you can manufacture your own surprise, like the feeling of a cold plunge or doing a really hard workout, your body won't crave it later, or your mind won't crave it later.
That's such a great tool, because when you brought up, we need surprise, a lot of us, I think, put that in the hands of other people. Like, oh, I wish my husband would surprise me with date night, or I wish my friend would surprise me with flowers or something. You need to facilitate it yourself, and then I think that also builds your confidence with your ability to shift your emotional state, because that's another thing that I think we give our power away a lot. We talked about emotional eating last week on a community call, and I think that it has a lot to do with what you just said, not being able to emotionally regulate ourselves. So we use external tools.
Yeah. I think I heard it yesterday, or I was reminded of it yesterday, that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And I think, again, going back to anxiety, the controversial opinion that anxiety is a choice is that, right? Again, as soon as you realize that if something is out of your control, there is no need to worry about it. But if it is in your control, then you can do something about it.
Right.
Takes the thinking out of it for you. There isn't a need to be anxious.
Right. Yeah. I really like what you said just now, where you're like, if you just assume responsibility over it, then you regain control over the situation. Because a lot of times we feel the most stressed over situations that we feel like we can't control.
Yeah.
But I think in every instance, we can kind of reframe it. Like, if this was my fault, what would I do about it? Well, it's not your fault, Savannah. So you can't, if it was my fault, what would I do about it? And we use this with our team a lot too. Like, oh, my client's not tracking their food. Okay. If it was your fault that they're not tracking their food, how would you handle it?
What would you do? That's so brilliant.
Right?
Yeah.
It works really well, because then we're assuming the responsibility and we're becoming better coaches because of it, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so great. Okay. So let's think of like a practical thing that people are struggling with. Like, what would you be anxious? I mean, great. Like, what do you get anxious about?
I think it's always, Well, a lot of times money, of course. I think
Okay.
that's the most commonly relatable thing that makes us
Yeah.
all anxious is money. I
Mm.
might have a big bill coming up. I might have to do a surgery. Like we're making up scenarios of future money that we might have to spend and making ourselves anxious over it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay, so if I don't know what you would call it, if the deficit, if being in the negative was your fault, then what would you do about it? How would you manufacture more money, or how would you manufacture a way to think about your finances that was empowering rather than defeating?
Yeah. I mean, I've done this a lot throughout the years. It was the reason that I started my business, because I was broke and I was paying like 50% of my personal trainer fee to the gym that I worked at. And I was
Yes.
suffering financially because of it. So I was like, I'm just going to take this on my own and make 100%. I think that we take more chances.
Yeah. Yep.
It forces us to take more chances, and that's what I have commonly done. I don't necessarily go towards cutting expenses. I go towards how can I open myself up to more money. I always listen to money mindset meditations. Actually, every time my alarm goes off, it goes to a money mindset meditation. So rather than rushing to turn it off, I'm just like, time to meditate.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think again, so that's another, I don't know how you came up with that. You can explain, but like knowing, we don't like using the word triggers in this house because I feel like it's become way too diluted. Just using that word like everything is a trigger. We use activators. So knowing what your activator is and then having a go-to for it. Yeah.
I like that you swapped it with activator because I do think that we are overusing the word trigger and it's making it negative.
Totally.
And it doesn't, it's just a switch. It's just something that prompts another thing.
Yeah. So one thing that we've done, and it's so funny that you have your go-to meditation. So have you ever seen the movie Inception?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, a long time ago, but it's a crazy movie.
It's an incredible movie. You should revisit it. It has like it's one of those movies that has like a different significance, or you catch something else every time you see it. So in order to know whether Leonardo DiCaprio was in a dream or in reality, he spun this top, right? And if the top fell down because gravity, then he was in real life. But if the top just kept spinning, he was in a dream. So he needed something to ground him. It's like it's a totem. So he had his top. So what I've used for my anxiety and what we've started teaching our clients is you need to find a totem for when you are activated. Now it can be a meditation. For me, it's going into my DMs because if I start answering questions and helping people, it grounds me again. It gets me out of my head because now I'm not the focus. Someone else has a problem that I can solve. So it makes me feel good. Some people go outside for a walk if you have that ability. So honestly, like number one piece of advice is find a totem that resonates with you.
That's so interesting that you go to talking to people.
Yeah.
I think we have learned about each other enough now that I do the exact opposite. And I'm like, I need a full day off of my phone completely. And Jamie's like,
hidey hole. Right. Thank you.
but it's true. And when I would have a lot of meetings on Mondays and I would be feeling anxious, after my first meeting, I would feel amazing because like you said, you redirect your energy towards actually helping someone and you're good at helping people. So it makes you feel good and you're giving something away to help. Like I do think that is a great tool that we don't use enough.
Yeah. And I think, again, you need to know your tool. Like, it's not talking to people. Like, I adore you, but it's not like I message you when I'm feeling anxious. It is specifically answering questions in my DMs. Because if I message you, you might be like, how are you? And I might be like, in the middle of an anxiety attack. What are you and Jake up to? But if I'm in my DMs, again, it's not about me. It's about helping and serving and doing what I do best, which is providing value.
I think that's a really powerful point because otherwise you could be using it in a way to use the person that you're talking to as your therapist, and then it kind of taints the relationship. You're not there to provide support. You're there to always get support from them. And that can be harmful too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing that I think is really important that a lot of us don't do is ask if a person on the other side of the phone has space. Because your friends aren't your therapist. I mean, again, a lot of friends are great at listening and offer sage advice. But number one, they might not have the space. And number two, you might need to vent, but they're going to try and solve, because that's human nature. When you see someone you care about in pain or having a problem, you want to fix it automatically because you care about this person. But what if I just needed to word vomit at you and not have like Savannah go into coach mode for me?
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think you nailed it, that we aren't always in the habit of asking permission first. And I think that can ruin a lot of relationships, and I think that is where miscommunications happen as well. Yeah, Jake and I have been working on our communication skills with this too, because I'm noticing as I get deeper into my perimenopause, I can't handle questions. Like, if I am having a rough day, don't ask me what I want for dinner. It's just one more thing that I can't answer,
Yeah. Yes. Okay. We should definitely. Okay. Another side quest. One of the reasons people have anxiety is because every day in 2025, we have a million decisions to make, especially if you wear more than one hat. If you are a single lady who just runs a business and has no friends, we should talk.
Right.
But also, like,
because maybe you're a lesbian. I'm just kidding.
Maybe we should definitely. Yeah. But also, in what world do you only wear one? And then the only decisions you have to make are about, I guess, what's happening in your business. But if you're into fitness, and I imagine that you have choices to make about what workout you're going to do, whether it's going to be a recovery day or a workout day, what macros you're going to hit, if you're going to count and track, and you have a partner and you have a business, maybe even a pet, the decision fatigue is real. You're going to give up by the time you get to like 3 p.m., right? So one of the reasons for me, again, going back to my routine, I have the same breakfast every single day. And people are like, is it because you track your macros? No, I haven't done that since October. Is it because you're that obsessed with oatmeal? Also, no. But it's because if I eliminate, again, whatever I do between the hours of 6 and 8, I have so much more space and capacity for if a friend comes to me and word vomits without asking, or I have to put out a million fires in our business, or whatever it is. Like, I'm just like, yeah, no, I got you. Not only am I bulletproof, but like I have so many decisions in my decision bank that I haven't used yet. So please feel free to make as many withdrawals as you want.
I love this. Usually I hear it in the terms of like spoons. Have you ever heard someone that's been to therapy and they're like, yeah, I only have this many spoons?
Or I've always seen like leaves on a tree. Like so the leaves just fall, and again, it's the same thing. It's a good. Yeah.
I like your process, because it sounds to me like it's a balance of controlled actions and then controlled chaos in a way.
Yeah.
So it's still all coming back to you having control, and I think that is really something that we all kind of feel like we lose, as life starts happening.
I mean, I think I give so much credit to you as a coach working with women in perimenopause, because when we get those clients and they start describing their symptoms, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like puberty 2.0.
It is.
So not looking forward to getting there myself, right? Like, and so there are so many more decisions you have to make, because you're now in a body, you've had a certain body from like, let's say 18 to 43, and now you're in a completely different body, right? So one thing that I give you and your team and your clients credit for is taking decisions away from these women, like what they're supposed to eat, how they're supposed to move. And you probably also give some mindset strategies and resources. Like if your clients, as your clients are listening to this specifically, guys, Savannah is giving you a gift on a silver platter, that you have so many fewer decisions to make as you navigate this next season of your life, because she and her team, I'm like plugging you, you're welcome.
I didn't know you were going to do this. Thank you.
Me neither, because who knows? But if you're gay, come to me. But right, that's the only thing. So she's taking away so many decisions for you that you can now be a better daughter, mother, sister, entrepreneur, worker bee, whatever your role is. You'll just be able to do that better because she's taking the thinking out of your health and wellness for you.
Yeah, even when it comes down to trying to figure out what supplements to take, like a lot of women come to us because of all of that fatigue of doing their own research. And they're like, well, I saw that I should take Chasteberry, but then I saw I should take Vitex, and I don't know how these are going to go together. And, it's really confusing and overwhelming when we're already overwhelmed.
Yeah, right. Again, because of so many other decisions that we have had to make and just life in general coming at us.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to wrap up with, I guess, just a little bit more insight on you and your background. And because I think that a lot of our clients could gain a lot of help from following you. So, what are, I guess, what are three of the most interesting things about you that you can think of, or shocking things?
Most interesting things about me. Gosh, I wonder if what I find interesting about me are different than what other people find interesting. I think it's interesting that I'm Canadian, because when I talk about my experience as an immigrant, they're like, right, but like you're a white English as a first language speaking female, and I said, yeah, but I still immigrated from Canada to America, which comes with a whole host of, my family doesn't live here. I mean, Katie is my family now, but like my mom doesn't live here. Taxes, citizenship, now what's going on in the world politically, like I get it. I'm white, but that doesn't mean anything. I can still get stopped, right? Like it's okay. So I think it's interesting that I'm an immigrant. I came out later in life. I came out when I was 26. I was engaged to a guy, and then subsequently engaged to a girl, and then I got married to my now wife. And the only job I've ever had is a personal trainer. So I got certified when I was 18. I'm 37 now. I mean, yes, I manage a team. I don't coach one-to-one in a gym or a crunch anymore. I had another job as the editor of a magazine. The entire time, I still ran a personal training business. So this is all I know, and this is the only job I want to have until I retire for good.
That's amazing. And you're right. I don't think we view Canadians as immigrants for some reason. And I don't think it's
just America's. Yeah, I hear that a lot. You guys are just like, you're still.
You guys are basically American.
Basically. You guys are just the meth lab that lives below us.
Yeah. Hey, you wanted to come here.
I did. Oh my God.
Oh man, that's good. Okay, well, how can we find you if we want to follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, at JAIM and the number 91, so Jaime91. And also, if and when you get a message from me, know it's probably because I'm having an anxiety attack. So you're doing me a favor.
That's perfect. You should put that in your bio.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I really enjoyed this episode. I think that we should do another one and just talk about like more fun recreational stuff. But there's one thing that I thought of when I was on a gummy high this weekend that I want to share with you before we go. Perfect. So it just like came to me and I was like, she's Jewish. And there's a term called mensch, right? Yeah. That I learned years ago. Isn't that like the cool person as a Jew? What is a mensch?
A mensch is someone he's like a do-gooder. Like, oh my God, like when you help an old lady cross the street, not that anybody does that anymore, but like that is mensch behavior.
Even better, even better.
Yeah.
So I thought it was like the guy that you want to be. So even better. I think you should rename your podcast and it should be called Carpet Menschers.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely it should. Okay.
Or at least a t-shirt.
Yeah, no, as soon as I get a co-host who is also like another Jewish, like a fun, yes, I'm in. I'm writing this down. Yeah.
I'm writing this down.
Writing this down. Perfect.
I enjoy that you came so prepared. Your hair is in a nice coif and I'm just over here in my bathrobe and having my husband bring me coffee.
You're Hugh Hefner and I'm the bunny. Like I had to look, you're the boss, so you can do whatever you want. I have to perform. I'm the dancing monkey.
Well, this is fun, Jaime. I've got to run because the hotel that we're staying at, it is like this 150-acre property, and there's like disc golf and mini golf and an obstacle course and zip lining. So we're going to go do all of that now on a Monday because I don't have anxiety.
Sunday on. Go have a Sunday fun day today.
Okay, I hope you're feeling seen, called out, and deeply validated all at once because same. Jaime has this magical way of taking something as messy and overwhelming as anxiety and making it feel manageable and even kind of funny. So whether you resonated with the need to control everything before 8 a.m., the habit of manufacturing chaos to feel alive, or the concept of finding your emotional totem, there's something in here for literally everyone. If this episode helped you, maybe gave you a little laugh or gave you that aha moment about your own habits, send it to a friend that gets it, or DM me and tell me what landed for you. And if you need Jaime in your life, and trust me, you do, go follow her on Instagram. I have linked her handle in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Fuck Around and Find Out podcast. We will see you in the next one with less anxiety, or at least a plan for it.